On the eve of the wedding, my fiancé, Victor, and his young secretary were intimately involved. I personally saw the man I had loved for 10 years now only have eyes for someone else. Love arrives in a blaze, but fades away without a sound. The old me would have argued, lost control, and desperately sought proof of Victor's love. But this time, I shredded my wedding dress and canceled the ceremony. I chose to let go, to grant them their wish, and to offer a grand parting gift. After the car accident, I was taken to the hospital by a passerby. As the nurse dressed my wounds, my phone buzzed with a picture. The background was clearly a hospital room, but unlike me, isolated and alone. The person in the photo was accompanied. A familiar, blurry profile showed stern, anxious eyes conveying deep affection and worry. Immediately after, a text message arrived. Someone who loves you will worry over a small scratch. Sister, let go. Don't wait until you're old and faded to find yourself completely unwanted. Swiftly, the message was recalled. I stared at the screen, frowning. Bella was so indulged by Victor that she was practically standing on my face to gloat. The nurse noticed my distress and was gentler with her motions. She tried to comfort me. You're lucky, considering the car was completely totaled. You only have a few scrapes. It was such a severe accident. Didn't you notify your family? I gave a bitter laugh. Family. Victor had dumped me at the accident scene and rushed his secretary to the hospital. Before leaving, he even hung up my emergency call and warned me not to make a scene, claiming it would damage both families' reputations in the news. Even my own family, upon hearing I was hit, repeatedly urged me. If Victor doesn't want to make a big deal of it, that means he still intends to marry you. Don't be ungrateful and mess up the stocks for both families. So, could I really call them family? I took a cab home. As soon as I entered the house, I saw Victor emerging from the bedroom. Seeing me, he involuntarily looked me up and down. Finally, he frowned, his tone containing faint derision. You aren't missing any limbs, are you? It's pathetic to use a car crash to frame Bella over a little argument. Amelia, that's an ugly look. You know that. I looked at him calmly. The coldness in his eyes merged with the image of his face at the accident site. The road was empty, the night wind strong and chilling, but nothing compared to the cruelty and indifference in Victor's eyes as he turned and carried Bella away. He had abandoned me at the isolated scene. Soon after, a fine, cold rain began to fall. The chill of the early winter night was pervasive. In the past, I would have broken down afterwards, demanding answers, leading to a massive, unhappy argument. But facing him now, my heart was calmer than ever before. I could no longer get upset over his blatant favoritism toward Bella. The last time I caused a huge scene was after catching the two of them, who were supposed to be away on a business trip, drunk in the same bed. That day, I had an emergency appendicitis and was rushed to the hospital in pain. I called Victor before surgery, but Bella answered over the phone. They sounded tipsy, and I could faintly hear the soft, intimate moans of a woman aroused. By the time I dragged myself to the hotel the next morning, the surgery was over. I caught them red-handed, but Victor wasn't ashamed of his actions. Instead, he blamed me for making a scene and publicizing the whole affair. I know what I did or didn't do with her. My body is mine to control. Bella stayed up all night to take care of me. She was exhausted. How is she supposed to face people at the company after you pulled the stunt? The soft moans and rough breaths still echoed in my ears. Yet now, he was turning the blame on me. He always had an excuse, making my violent rage and anger seem like overreactions. But after the car crash, watching his back as he carried Bella away, something snapped inside me. The ultimate goal of an argument is communication, to solve problems between two people. But between him and me, that was no longer necessary. Victor, our wedding. My words were cut short by the abrupt ring of a phonious sweet, soft female voice singing a romantic, exclusive song. Bella's voice was unique. I recognized it instantly. She had recorded it especially for Victor. Victor, who had been frowning and irritated just moments ago, immediately looked anxious and hurried to answer the call. Are you feeling unwell somewhere? A charming giggle came from the other end. Oh, boss, don't be so nervous. I just wanted to remind you to grab enough skincare products for tonight at the hospital. I noticed the paper bag in Victor's hand. It contained the new skincare I had bought a few days ago. Still unopened. Victor hung up the phone and looked at me with a tone of rebuke. If it weren't for you, she wouldn't need to be hospitalized for observation. I'll buy you new skincare another day, he patiently explained, as if afraid I might give Bella trouble over the products. I waved my hand dismissively. Don't bother. I won't be needing them anyway. Victor was momentarily stunned by my lack of argument. He looked puzzled. You aren't angry. Standing still for too long. The injury on my ankle began to throb. Slow, sharp pain crept through my body. I fought it back, biting my lip and nodding. I won't get angry about anything involving you and her anymore. Victor's face instantly hardened. What's the point? Playing hard to get and acting generous is truly cheap. He then grabbed my arm in a warning gesture. You better not cause any trouble for Bella, or else. The sudden movement made sweat break out on my forehead from the pain. I pulled away from his hand, interrupting him through gritted teeth. Or else what? He was used to threatening me with a breakup. I used to be terrified and insecure whenever he mentioned splitting up. But sometime recently, hearing his constant threat had simply become dull. Perhaps sensing the profound calm in my eyes, Victor was momentarily speechless. Finally, he snorted, grabbed his car keys, and left. As soon as he was gone, I called a reporter I knew. If they went to the hospital tonight, they would surely get the footage I wanted. Since Victor dared to act, he had to bear the consequences of his choices. The next day, my father's accusing call came in as soon as I woke up. The Xiao family just called to postpone the wedding. Did you provoke Victor again? The marriage alliance between the Han and Xiao families heavily favored the Han family. So, ever since I started dating Victor, my father had repeatedly warned me to hold on to him tightly. You better find a way to appease Victor. You chased him so publicly. If this wedding falls through, who in the circle will ever want you? He wasn't afraid of a break with the Xiao family. He was afraid that if my reputation was ruined, I would be unwanted, thus destroying my final value to him. Dad, he slept with someone else. He's only denying it to save face for the Xiao family. Don't you find a son-in-law like that disgusting? The sound of shattering objects suddenly came from the other end of the phony of violent, barely suppressed fury. Amelia, you listen to me. Even if Victor becomes a cripple, since you chose him in the beginning, you will secure him. But when I first fell in love with him, I didn't know that one day our relationship would become so unbearable. It was pointless to explain these things to my father, as long as it benefited him. His daughter's marriage was just a tool for him to climb the social ladder. Happiness was irrelevant. I called Victor. When the phone connected, I only heard Victor's spoiled, loving tone directed at someone beside him. Stop. Let me take this call. He fell silent for a long moment, seemingly waiting for my explosion of anger or tears. But I sounded calm. Victor, are you coming home in the next few days? He chuckled coldly. If you want me home, just say it. Don't use such cheap, roundabout ways to seek attention. But my next words disappointed him. You'd better not come home for the next couple of days. I hired a cleaner to deep clean the entire villa. It's pretty filthy and uninhabitable right now. I waited for him to get angry, but Victor seemed to misinterpret my meaning. His laughter sounded rather pleased. Are you saying you cleaned the room to prepare for the wedding? He thought this was just another tactic of submission. He seemed quite pleased with himself. I didn't bother correcting him, stating plainly, Victor, I stopped looking forward to this wedding a long time ago. He suddenly fell silent, his breathing tight. Then, Bella's cooing gasp came through the phone. Ouch! You're hurting me. The phone was abruptly hung up. I looked at the disconnected screen, my emotions unperturbed. Before leaving for work, the construction foreman, still uneasy, came to ask me again. Miss, I see that room should be the master bedroom. It was decorated beautifully. Are you sure you want to completely renovate that room? Telling Victor the first hired a cleaner was just an excuse. I had meticulously decorated that room myself. Only recently did I realize that while he and Bella were entangled, while he didn't come home night after night, I was alone, guarding an empty room, excitedly decorating what I thought was our honeymoon suite. The unanswered calls, the excuses about working overtime was all to be with Bella. Victor and I had been together from high school through to our careers. From the blazing passion of youth to the present mutual dislike born of a fickle heart. He was the one who betrayed the relationship first. I certainly wouldn't leave my carefully designed bridal suite for him and his mistress. Looking at the foreman's nervous face, I smiled softly. The man I loved is dead. What's the point of keeping this honeymoon suite? The foreman's eyes immediately showed sympathy. But as I left, I felt profound relief. Victor was once my unattainable adolescent dream. When the dream came true, my father's expectations crushed the breath out of me. When self-interest mixed with love, the feelings became impure. But Victor's betrayal finally made me realize I had spent my youth seeking my father's love, and my adulthood seeking another man's love. What I really needed to learn was how to love myself. I couldn't control another person's sincerity, so I would take control of my own life. I wouldn't place my expectations on anyone, only to have them fall short. My company secured a large contract, so after dinner, I invited my employees out for karaoke. On my way to the restroom, through the glass door of a hallway booth, I spotted Victor and Bella in his arms. They were competing with another couple, sharing a short, thin chocolate stick from mouth to mouth. People were cheering them on, and the atmosphere was hot. The intimacy in their shared gaze made the air feel sticky. I found the scene tiresome and was about to leave, when Victor suddenly spotted me. His doting smile froze, and the next second he shoved Bella away. I had only taken 2 steps before he rushed out and grabbed me. "What are you doing here?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You can play here, but I can't." Seeing my cold attitude, he nervously explained, "It's just a little game among friends. Don't make a scene." I nodded. "Understood. Are we done?" I was being overly generous, refusing to criticize my fiancé for playing such an intimate game with another woman. He clearly found my reaction unnerving. "What is wrong with you? If you're upset, just say so. Don't take it out on Bella later." I pushed him away, frustrated. "Relax. I won't concern myself with her again." I walked away and entered my own booth. Victor stood rooted to the spot, looking utterly lost. When the company gathering ended, I unexpectedly saw Victor in the hallway again. My employees knew our relationship and greeted him with smiles. Bella, standing beside him, looked visibly unhappy. Victor insisted on driving me home, ignoring my refusals. I initially resisted, but then figured, why not accept a free ride in the freezing weather? As we approached the car, Bella smoothly opened the passenger door. "Sister, I get carsick. You don't mind if I sit up front, do you?" The passenger seat was typically reserved for me. I had a bad neck, and Victor had even bought a special neck pillow for me there. But now, that green neck pillow was carelessly tossed in the back seat, replaced by a pink cushion clearly Bella's style. Victor noticed my gaze and quickly explained, "She left it here last time she rode with me. She forgot to take it." I didn't care. Before he finished speaking, I opened the back door and slid in. Victor looked deflated, clearly anxious about my coldness. But as soon as I sat down, my palm touched some unknown sticky fluid. I looked down and saw an individual packet of adult supplies in the storage pocket behind the seat back. The wrapper was torn open, and a strange scent permeated the air. My mind went blank. I instantly realized what had happened. A wave of nausea, unlike anything I'd ever felt, surged through me. By the time Victor reacted, I had quickly thrown open the door and flagged down a passing taxi. The cab sped away, leaving a bewildered and anxious Victor standing in the road. The taxi driver saw how unwell I looked and smelled the alcohol. Afraid I would vomit in his car, he pulled over and asked me to get out halfway. The cold night air hit me, and my shaking body gradually calmed down and sobered up. I had already faced reality, so why did I react so violently just now? Victor's phone calls began flooding my line, one after another, but I ignored them all. Finally, he sent a barrage of texts. He must have realized what I saw after I left the car. Checking the back seat and finding the unused condom wrapper, he was desperate, urging me to answer the phone and listen to his explanation. He frantically shifted all blame, claiming a friend had borrowed the car a few days ago. I simply texted back, "Understood." Who he slept with, or who he lent his car to, was no longer my concern. That night, Victor avoided coming home. The next day, I received a call from the bridal shop. My custom gown had arrived, and they wanted me to come for a fitting. Later that evening, the streets were deserted and bleak. Victor had designed the gown himself years ago. Though the style was a bit dated, it was priceless because of the intense love that went into it. Victor's phone was unreachable, so the owner called me. Seeing me suddenly appear, the shop owner looked flustered and embarrassed, glancing anxiously toward the fitting room. The next second, I understood everything. The wedding dress I had once cherished was now being worn by another woman, and my fiancé stood beside her. He watched Bella with a tender, appreciative gaze mixed with complicated affect-Iona look I recognized. I had seen it in Victor's eyes before, but directed at me. Bella saw me over Victor's shoulder. She instantly jumped off the fitting platform as if seeing a monster, hiding fearfully in Victor's arms. Sister, don't misunderstand. I just thought this dress was pretty. I only realized it was yours after I put it on. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. They happened to be shopping, happened to wander into the bridal store, and Bella happened to fall in love with my dress. And by coincidence, the owner just happened to call me in for a fitting. It was all too coincidental, as if deliberately staged. What was Victor's purpose? Did he want to see me break down, weeping, and fighting gracelessly with Bella over a dress? If he didn't love me, he could have just let go with dignity. Hearing my laughter, Victor's spine noticeably stiffened. When he turned, his eyes held a forced composure. Don't misunderstand. All wedding dress styles look similar. I only realized it was ours after she tried it on. She's just a young girl. It's normal for her to want to try on a wedding dress. As he spoke, he subtly observed my expression, searching for any hint of anger beneath my calm facade. He knew how much I adored the dress when he showed me his initial sketches. I loved it so much I would sneak into his study at midnight to look at the designs. Victor would wake up, see how much I loved it, and be thrilled. The moonlight shone into the unlit room, and two loving hearts clung together. He gently kissed away the tears of joy that fell. He had promised to make me the happiest bride in the world. Yet now, he had personally dressed another woman in that gown. In that moment, I suddenly felt exhausted. I couldn't even summon the energy to speak to him. Seeing my indifference, Victor became visibly nervous. I looked at Bella's face, which hid a smug triumph, and curled my lips slightly. If you like it, keep it, as long as you don't feel disgusted wearing it. My generous concession only made Victor more restless. He grabbed my arm, preventing me from turning away. His eyes were filled with panic, his voice unsteady. Amelia, why aren't you angry? I thought seriously for a moment, and a sudden clarity washed over me. It's probably because I simply don't care anymore. Because I didn't love him. I no longer cared about anything related to him. Love arrives in a blaze, but fades away without a sound. Unexpectedly, Victor abandoned Bella, still standing there in the wedding dress, exposed to the clerk's judgmental stares. She looked like a clown, much like I used to look. In the confined space of the car, Victor's rigid expression betrayed a strange nervousness. Seeing my continued silence, he uncharacteristically offered an explanation. I just didn't want the car accident to blow up. I was only indulging her to soothe her. So he still didn't believe my claim that Bella deliberately crashed into my side of the car. He grew anxious when I didn't respond. I know you're still mad about the hotel incident. I promise. Bella was just taking care of a drunk me that night. Nothing else happened. I honestly didn't care anymore. Even if something had happened, it was predictable. Victor allowed Bella's provocations and overtly favored her. He was simply unwilling to admit his own changing heart. But he couldn't handle my silence. He slammed his hand down on the horn, the sudden blare shocking my heart. I turned to look at him, meeting a pair of red-rimmed eyes that looked cornered. Why won't you get mad? Amelia, why won't you challenge me? How could I challenge him? Every time, Victor had an excuse. He was calm, like an observer coldly watching my pathetic, hysterical display. He would drive me mad, then lightly dismiss it with, Amelia, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. The tenacity of a person in love is never a molehill. I met his gaze, my heart so peaceful I genuinely didn't understand why Victor looked so desperate now. Challenge you about what? You always have a different excuse. I'm tired, and I don't have the energy to worry about who you love anymore. Victor, whose face had been full of strained expectation, suddenly deflated. He seemed to realize that the intense passion he once saw in my eyes was gone, replaced by the dull stillness of stagnant water. He suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace, unwilling to look into my eyes. His voice trembled, sounding like a helpless, trapped animal. It shouldn't be like this. Amelia, you love me the most. Your father used every scheme to marry you off to me. Your whole family wanted to trade you for profit. But why are your eyes so calm? So calm that I feel no love, no care at all. I knew Victor's growing coldness was related to my father's greed. Love tainted by profit isn't pure. But true love isn't shattered by worldly desire. Being hurt wasn't because I stopped loving him. It was because he didn't love me enough. After a long pause, I said softly, Victor, you felt it once. He had felt my most ardent and pure love. Because he genuinely experienced being loved. He could instantly sense the loss when that love vanished. It was similar to the morning I suddenly realized Victor hadn't kissed me goodbye and said I love you in ages. And I, too, had stopped leaving a light on and waiting up for him until late at night. The conversation was forcibly cut short by Bella knocking on the car window. It was early winter, and Bella held her coat, not wearing it. Her slender figure was weak and pitiful, looking like the wind could blow her away. Her eyes were teary. Boss, it's all my fault that you and sister are misunderstanding each other. The Bella standing here was the complete opposite of the one who had secretly provoked me on my phone. I watched her self-pitying act with coldness. She then turned her innocent, tearful eyes to me. Sister, if yelling at me would make you feel better, yell at me, hit me, slap. I didn't hesitate, delivering a sharp blow across her face. Her fair, delicate cheek instantly swelled and turned red. Victor exploded, shoving me away violently. Amelia, are you crazy? Why did you hit her? I stood silently. The intense, clear pain in my ankle helped me make a sudden decision. Victor, it's not shameful to admit you don't love me. The worst thing is being a coward like you, who clearly doesn't love me but refuses to admit it. Because our 10 years of love were real. It felt like whoever gave up first would be the loser of the relationship. Victor had been pushing me, forcing me to acknowledge the end of our love. Yet he still pretended to love me, as he just did. He glared at me, about to speak, but my next words left his face paler than ever before. Victor, fortunately, I don't love you anymore, either. The next morning, I was packing my bags. A delivery service dropped off the wedding dress from last night, along with a note. The dress has been cleaned. The wedding will proceed as scheduled. But something that is dirty remains distasteful, even when cleaned. Besides, I didn't go to the shop last night for a fitting. I went to retrieve my memories, to prevent them from defiling them. The pure white wedding dress symbolized the best parts of my past relationship. Those memories accompanied my youth, leaving a vibrant mark on my life. But Victor had destroyed it all. I took scissors and personally shredded the gown. The tattered pieces scattered on the floor, like the most beautiful dream I had in my youth. Now, the dream was over. As I dragged my suitcase out, I posted one last update on social media. Wedding cancelled. Wishing myself a new life. I calmly turned off my phone, ignoring the frantic notifications. The thought of the grand gift I was about to send Victor in a few days filled me with hidden anticipation. A sedan pulled into the neighborhood, passing a figure pulling a suitcase. Victor, inside the car, felt a sudden, sharp pain in his heart. A strong sense of unease surged, as if something vital was about to vanish, leaving him with an overwhelming feeling of powerlessness and frustration. The image that flashed in his mind was Amelia's calm, vacant eyes. Because he had once witnessed her most fervent love, he could instantly recognize the profound difference now. He was terrified, insecure. That's why, when Amelia walked away last night, he lacked the courage to chase after her. He kept reassuring himself that once they were married, he would change, and everything would be fine. He arrived at the villa to find the interior in chaos. The foreman was hauling things out. His housekeeper, Maria, looked surprised to see him. Sir, why are you back? Miss Amelia said you wouldn't be back for days, so we haven't finished cleaning up yet. Hearing Miss Amelia, the anxiety in his heart vanished slightly. His lips softened. Where is she? Maria paused. Didn't you see her? Miss Amelia just left. Before he could process this, a worker emerged from the bedroom carrying 2 brand new bedside lamps. Victor realized why the house had felt wrong since he entered. Who told you to touch those? Amelia had specially bought those lamps for the bedside after the wedding. In the quiet of the night, their warm yellow light was meant to illuminate their world alone. The lamps were a pair, and the people were meant to be a pair. But now, The lamps were being discarded like trash, just like their relationship. The two workers, seeing his expensive clothes, were startled and hurried to explain. Fearing trouble, the mistress of the house said her beloved died, and she didn't want anything from the bridal suite, telling us to dispose of it as we renovate. The words struck Victor's heart like a heavy hammer. His breath hitched, and his mind went blank for a moment. He stumbled into what used to be the bridal suite. The room was pristine now, devoid of any trace of celebration. Amelia had designed the suite. Her excitement, her joy, her visible enthusiasm while holding the blueprints, it was all precious. She had lovingly prepared for their wedding because she loved him. But now, the entire room was alien. He couldn't even smell her familiar scent in the air. All traces of Amelia had been utterly destroyed in this room, and he hadn't been able to stop it. He roared like an out-of-control beast. "Who told you to touch this room? Who gave you permission?" Victor frantically pushed aside a worker dismantling the curtains. His gaze searched for the most familiar spot in the room, but it seemed every detail had been intentionally altered. The room he and Amelia had shared for 5 years was completely changed. It was unfamiliar, and it frightened him. Just then, his phone rang. His mother's fury was audible even through the phone. "What on earth is wrong with that Amelia girl? Why did she post on social media that the wedding is cancelled? I warned you not to use the breakup threat on her. And now you've gone and caused trouble with her father." Everyone knew how strict Amelia's father was. She had always strived for excellence and strictly followed his demands, just to avoid being scolded or beaten. Amelia's only act of rebellion was brazenly confessing her love to him at her high school graduation ceremony. Her father, feeling humiliated and worried it would hinder future high society marriages, beat Amelia until she was bruised and confined her at home for days. Only after Victor repeatedly promised they were genuinely in love and would marry after graduation did her father relent. Their relationship was the result of their combined effort. Yet, after so many years, Victor had delayed fulfilling his promise. Victor clutched his aching heart and sank powerlessly to the floor. He knew Amelia had defied her father, whom she feared since childhood. For him, she had committed acts she never would have otherwise. Yet, annoyed by her father's constant demands, he started doubting Amelia's love. So he began testing her without limits, pushing her away repeatedly, trying to prove that she needed him. He felt like he had lost the person who loved him most. Amelia hadn't been joking on the phone that day. She truly was no longer looking forward to their wedding. A few days later, I finally turned my phone back on, only to receive a call from my father. I could imagine the trouble my social media post had caused for both the Xiao and Han families, but none of it concerned me anymore. My father had already profited immensely through his partnership with the Xiao family, but failed to rein in his greed. As for the Xiao family, they only had Victor to blame. He couldn't save face while forcing me to bear an undeserved responsibility. I answered my father's call, knowing it would be a torrent of abuse, calling me ungrateful and a parasite on the Han family. Even my 2 older brothers used the call to vent their dissatisfaction. They had climbed onto the Xiao family's back using me, only to now accuse me of selfishness. "You're nearly 30 and still dreaming the silly love dreams of a teenage girl. What man can resist temptation? You should be grateful he was willing to marry you." I looked at the slight redness and swelling on my ankle, realizing with a pang that the people who hurt me most had always been my family. Fortunately, I woke up before it was too late. My 2 brothers and I grew up under my father's strict, high-pressure control, surviving amidst competition. The coldness of our family life had given me a thick skin. You 2 have plenty of mistresses yourselves. When profits are concerned, you naturally sympathize with your own kind. Finally, I offered them a piece of advice. You should stop hoping for an alliance between the 2 families. Pull out of all projects related to the Xiao family and cut your losses. Hanging up, I called my friend, a prominent social media influencer. "The dashcam footage from the accident is ready." I let out a sigh of relief. You know what to do next. As long as public opinion stands entirely with me, the resentment I've held since the accident will not be in vain. My friend on the phone couldn't help but complain. "You should be careful. Victor has been looking for you like a madman these past few days." I had assumed Victor would blame me when questioned by our elders. Instead, he took full responsibility, claiming I was suffering from pre-wedding anxiety. He assured everyone that once I returned from my break, the wedding would proceed. My friend told me that to find my whereabouts. The normally aloof and arrogant Victor lowered himself to wait outside my friends' houses, begging for information, ignoring their insults. When I pleaded with him, he was dismissive. Now, he was acting heartbroken. I was beginning to understand Victor less and less. The new home was an apartment I rented before I left, and Victor didn't know the location. He continued to call me relentlessly. When I finally answered, his voice was ecstatic yet cautious. "Amelia, you finally answered." I thought of how I once devoted myself to him, only to be constantly ignored. Now the roles were reversed, and Victor sounded like the insecure person I once was. "Victor, you're really annoying. You know that?" He choked up, his voice turning desperate. "I only realized how wrong I was after you left. Please believe me. Nothing happened between me and Bella. I was just afraid. Afraid that you were only with me for profit, like everyone else said. I tested you repeatedly because I needed to know my place in your heart." I couldn't help but laugh. "And now you know that I really don't love you anymore." Victor quickly interrupted. "No, you do love me. I just used the wrong method." Victor. Self-deception to this extent is just plain stupidity. Stupid, yet still congratulating himself. I hung up and opened the social media platform. The postponed wedding had already made both the Xiao and Han families infamous online. Netizens were speculating about the truth. Some curious users had even dug up the details of Victor and my 10 years together. From high school sweethearts to the brink of marriage, our love story was media gold. Now, I was adding fuel to the fire, sending the topic trending. The video my friend mentioned was footage I bought dearly from other cars present at the accident that night. My own car had a dashcam, but the bystander's perspective was more damning. Bella thought the location was remote and lacked surveillance, unaware that if you don't want people to know, don't do it. The footage clearly showed her suddenly swerving out of the corner, aiming straight for my driver's seat without even turning the wheel. She slammed the brakes out of self-preservation just before impact, but the footage was enough to cause a sensation online. Following that, reporters released videos of Victor and Bella entering and leaving the hotel and hospital together, alongside footage of me, injured, going in and out of the hospital alone. This confirmed the public's suspicions. I instantly transformed from an ungrateful rich girl into a pitiful victim abandoned by her lover and ignored by her family. At the same time, my company's newly launched brand was officially announced online. Suddenly, the internet was saturated with the topic. It was far more effective than paying for advertising. I saw Victor again half a month later, after being questioned by the police. Bella faced the difficulty of my lawsuit. To force Victor to save her, she threatened to release the hotel video. Furious, Victor also sued her. The social circle had always been messy, but everyone tried to keep their scandals quiet. Victor, however, had become the joke of the entire elite community. The former high-status, aloof golden boy was now pathetic. He didn't care about the gossip. He finally found my new apartment. It was raining that night. Under the pale street lamp, Victor looked utterly wretched, reminding me of myself when he abandoned me. When he spoke, his voice was rough and hoarse. "Amelia, I know I was wrong. I was genuinely drunk that night. I swear I never touched Bella. You can punish me however you want, but please don't ignore me." I blocked the doorway, afraid he might force his way in. I didn't want my new home tainted with his presence. It's a good thing we didn't marry. Otherwise, wasting time on you would make it impossible to date other people. I deliberately provoked him, expecting him to lash out in anger. Instead, Victor gripped my hand, his eyes desperate and humble. "I know you're angry. I've already sent Bella to prison. If that's not enough, punish me however you wish. Amelia, the house hasn't felt like a home since you left. It feels like a cold cage. I finally understand the loneliness you faced on those nights I didn't come home." He started to cry. The man who was always so calm and composed now sounded like a lost, helpless child. I shook off his hand, looking at him with distaste. "Victor, do you know what the first thought in my mind was when I saw you and Bella lying in that hotel bed?" Victor seemed to anticipate something, his stiff body shaking. As I spoke, his already haggard face turned paper white. "Filthy. Victor, you are so filthy. I would never forget that scene for the rest of my life. regardless of whether he actually slept with Bella. His attitude at the time was abnormal. He knew he was wrong, yet he had the audacity to justify and cover up his actions. His last reserves of courage seemed to be spent. Victor lost control. I know I'm unforgivable, but what can I do? I don't want to lose you. I'd rather die than be apart from you. His emotion escalated, and the look in his eyes changed. He became like a coiled animal watching its exclusive prey. The next moment, he acted on it. He reached out, pulling me into a desperate embrace, burying his head in my neck. His hot tears soaked my collar. I'll always remember the Amelia who confessed to me at 18, shining like a beam of light into my life. I know I'll never meet another Amelia in this life. So, either you kill me, or we die together. Otherwise, I'll never separate from you. But the Amelia who loved him most had already been destroyed by his own hands. Finally, I grabbed the vase from the entrance table and smashed it straight onto his head. Blood instantly gushed out, soaking both our clothes. Victor still clung to me tightly. It took a neighbor hearing the commotion and calling the police to finally separate us. As he was led away, the despair in his broken eyes seemed to acknowledge that there was truly no possibility left for us. With the hope of a Hanshao alliance shattered, my father and brothers suffered massive financial losses. I blocked my father's calls as I prepared to board a flight for an international trip. Freed from the shackles imposed by my family, I felt like I could finally breathe. When the plane landed, I received a call from my friend. She told me Victor was taken to the hospital after the police incident, where a checkup revealed a tumor in his head. My blow had inadvertently led to the early discovery of a hidden illness. However, doctors confirmed it was late-stage cancer, and he wouldn't live long. Even with treatment, I expected to feel sadness. It was a human life, after all. But on the way to the hotel, I was lost in thought. Which was harder to forget? A partner who betrayed you, or a partner who was about to die? My driver interrupted my musings, describing the beautiful scenery in broken English. In that moment, my chaotic thoughts suddenly cleared. Life is so short. Why worry about things that have already happened or things yet to come? But life is also long. Looking back, I realized that the things I worried about most would eventually become the least significant pains of my life. I knew I was the most precious thing in the world, and that was enough.